Coming up on UGTV, Standing Committee Meetings of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We begin with a meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee. This will be followed by the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee.
We're ready to get started with our 5 o'clock Public Works and Safety Standing Committee, so I'm going to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. We appreciate the time you're going to spend with us here tonight, and public comment is welcome. During our meetings, if you wish to speak on any item, you may do that when the item comes up for discussion. You would have up to 3 minutes, and we would ask you to come forward to the microphone, and then we would ask you to speak directly into it. Could we have roll call, please?
Groneman? Here. Philbrook?
Here.
Markley? Here. Kane? Here. Johnson? Here. Bynum?
Here. Tonight we have a revision on our agenda. Item 4 is an update for an agreement for the auto aid with Fire District 1 in Leavenworth County, so that's a revision on our agenda. And then our first order of business is minutes from October 22. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on our minutes. All in favor say aye, and I apologize before we do that. We have 2 sets of minutes, October and November. Can I have that motion?
Move to approve for both.
Second.
Thank you. And now all in favor say aye.
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 And that approves the minutes. We have 10 items on our committee meeting tonight. Item 1, an ordinance authorizing the use of electronic assisted scooters and shared small vehicle programs. Mr. Waters.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have an update for you tonight. You may recall this item was before you last October. Shortly after that meeting, however, we received some guidance from the Kansas Department of Revenue that indicated that they do not consider these electric scooters to be motor vehicles under state law. So that required that we go back and change the ordinance a little bit. We had had them classified as motor vehicles. We had a required license and registration. Therefore, we've taken that out. We did ask the state, okay, if you don't consider them motor vehicles, do you see them falling under any other provisions under state law? They could not point to a specific statute that these fall under. So it is our opinion that state law is silent on the matter, and therefore that we have home rule authority to regulate these until a state law is passed. regulating these. So we've just made a couple of changes. We added a new definition of electric assisted scooter. This closely matches the state law definition of electric assisted bicycle, under the understanding that most likely, when the state law is changed, it would be something to this effect. This is very similar. The only difference is that bicycles are limited to a top speed of 20 miles an hour, and scooters would be limited to 15 miles an hour. One change we did make to reflect what I would say is kind of a growing concern about the potential safety aspects of these is we made a change that would restrict the use of these to streets of 35 miles an hour or less unless there is a bike path. That is consistent with most cities and states. California, Michigan, Oregon, Columbus, Ohio, Greensboro, North Carolina, that seems to be the trend to limit these to lower speed streets.
So Patrick, that means that like Leavenworth Road, it doesn't have a bike path, it just has a share
Correct.
mark on that, so they could not be on that
Would
road.
be restricted, right.
Just wanted to make sure that folks understood what we're talking about. Thank you.
Correct.
I would only say I think Leavenworth Road is 35. So we could double check, but just in that specific street, I believe the speed limit is 35. I think so.
I'm glad you know.
I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
And if the commission feels a different speed is necessary, we can change that. And also, I would note this trial program is for 1 year. So if we feel that needs to be changed at the end of the first year, we can change that.
My only comment would be we allow bicycles that are on, can go up and down State Avenue. I mean, anywhere that a vehicle can go.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out, when motorized bicycle versus the Razor sorts of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just asking.
It's a good question. I think there is a feeling among a lot of people that these are just a little bit different in terms of how riders use these and how they interact with traffic. They're new. Not a lot of people have experience. Most people grew up on bicycles and have a lot of experience riding those. And so until people really get a feel for how these interact in traffic, I would just say the trend is to limit this. Again, if the data doesn't bear that out and we want to change it, move it up or down, we can always have that. This is just, like I said, the state of California, Oregon, Michigan, and then several other cities that have instituted these scooters are going with the 35-mile limit. So that's kind of what I felt was like the benchmark to use right now.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, thank you. What is the basic strategy that we have for rolling out these vehicles right now?
Sure, and I'll just go to the last slide. So assuming if the ordinance is recommended for approval and wins approval at the full commission, we would enter into individual operating agreements with these companies. So those operating agreements would be for 1 year. They would address all the different issues about how the operators have to respond for illegally parked devices, how soon they would have to come out and move those. We would have requirements that they put a certain portion of their fleet in low-income areas so that everyone in the city has access to these. There would be fees associated with, because we're allowing these to be parked in our right-of-way, and there would be a data sharing component so that we would know how our citizens are using these, what the best, what paths, and we could really use that data to kind of determine where we might need bike lanes in the future.
So, but we haven't determined if there is a specific, for instance, downtown seems to me to be the obvious place, but I like what we have with regard to the low-income areas, because that would include a lot of areas in our town. So right. Have we looked at it starting in downtown and spreading from there, or just overall just depends on how the negotiations go?
I think for the most part, we would let the operators decide where they want their fleets to go. I certainly anticipate downtown would be one of the main ones, probably the KU Med Center area as well. Those would be two right off the bat. But for the most part, I think the operators would probably, determine that.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's all I have, requesting advancement to the February 14th meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? We have a motion and a second on this item. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. That motion carries. Item 2. We have an ordinance adding progressive design build to our procurement code, and we have Susan Alig here with council to present.
Good evening. This is an ordinance that will allow the unified government to use another alternative delivery method for construction projects. Last year, we passed the construction manager at risk method. This method is similar. However, it will allow us to select a design builder based on qualifications instead of price. This is a good method to use for very large and complex construction projects like the Cop Point Digester project. It means that we'll be contracting with one team that will be doing the design build. We'd enter into a contract with them and then have them design, and they would submit a gross maximum price amendment to the contract once the design is complete enough to price. So very similar to construction manager at risk, which has been going well on some of our construction projects. The big difference is that it would be one contract with the design builder instead of two contracts with a designer and a builder.
Questions, comments from the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the item. Could we have roll call?
Roll call. Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Anyway, thank you for you guys coming forward with that. I think it's great.
All right, thank you very much. Item 3 is a resolution declaring necessity and authorizing a survey and description for BPU installation. And Susan's staying here to present.
And we do have the engineer from BPU, Philip Brown, here if you have detailed questions about the project. But just a bird's eye view is that we're looking for a 25-foot temporary construction easement that would allow us to complete a water line project. And the easement would go on the north side of the Schlitterbahn property.
I didn't hear.
The easement would go on along the north side of the Schlitterbahn property.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, we've got item 4. This one is a resolution approving an agreement with Fire District 1, Leavenworth County, and this was the blue sheet that has the agreement with it, and we've got Katie Devlin and Chief Callahan here. So we'll hand it over to you.
This is a resolution that we're asking for authorization for Mr. Bach to enter into agreements to execute this automatic aid agreement, and we have Chief Callahan here to discuss that.
So this is going to codify some responses we already have, and it's going to put it into a written agreement between Leavenworth County and Wyandotte County, or KCK Fire Department. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at the agreement. It basically gives us additional water supply availability in the northwest corner of the county, where we're bereft of water supply in some areas. And Leavenworth County can send us 5 tankers full of water. They have an excellent tanker shuttle program. So basically, we've entered into an agreement with them where they'll send us water.
Commissioner Kane.
One, I'm glad you reached out, because you also reached out to the Beaumont or the folks in Baser. However, I asked for the names of the chiefs who I personally contacted and talked to both of them who are excited about the agreement. And they should be, because it'll benefit them more than it'll benefit us. But the real issue is the exposure, because this is a Band-Aid on a very large problem. When we bring outside people in, they won't be as familiar with the area as we are, and it'll still leave a gap that in my mind is unacceptable. Now, what I'd like to see, and what I've asked for and have not got, is the actual contract, because I want to take that contract, both from the Fairmont or Brim, whatever they are, and the Lansing folks, so I can take it to other chiefs so they can check it out. Because I don't have enough confidence in staff, because they've dragged their feet on this multiple times, and this is a huge issue in my mind. It's bigger than the other two stations, and it's important to know that those guys are really good at their job, but half of them are volunteer, half of them are paid. And if you're not a full-time fireman and you're coming into a strange area, you're not going to know the community like the rest of them. And when I say that contract's important, because I asked for the contract, didn't get it. I've asked for the names of the chiefs, I didn't get it. And the only thing I got was the addresses. And I want to be able to take this to an outside group, because I know several chiefs, and say, what do you think? So I can come back and say, this will work or this won't work, and here's why it will or why it won't.
So I have a question based on what you're saying. The agreement that's in the packet, then there's more.
There would be a lot more detail than
this. Okay, so would you be willing? Do you want to start here? Do you want to table till we get more of what
I'd
you're
like to have it
asking for?
tabled until we get the contract. I can, because you're working on one with the folks from Basic, correct?
This is, this is pretty much all of Leavenworth County's involved in this, but it's Fairmount and it's Leavenworth County Fire District.
And the Lansing one is complete. They have like 5 townships. And you can go on their internet and you can see their meetings, which they talk about you coming out there, how they liked your involvement with them, and I'm glad you did it. But I want to be able to say, okay, people in District 5, here's the agreement that we have, because I'm not sure it's going to be enough. And part of this, the fix really is to put a new truck company out at 6's until they build the fire station, and this is a Band-Aid on a major issue out west. And before you got here, Chief, we had an outside group come in and say, we don't need 1 fire station, we need 2 out west. So what I'm trying to do is we've already proved that we lack the coverage. And I don't want something to happen to somebody that didn't have to happen because we didn't move. And I say a new because somebody said, I said move a company out there. A new truck company, because we're going to have to pay for it once they build a fire station anyway. So in my mind, this is a huge issue. And before we can move forward, we need more detail.
Okay, so what I'd like to hear from council or administration or chief is holding this for more information and more detail about what Commissioner Kane is asking for. What does that do? I realize it's a delay, but in the event that something were to occur while we get more information and more fact-finding, imagine we'd respond as we would anyway. But what's it do to the fire department? What's it do to legal and administration to hold table till we bring back what Commissioner Kane's asking for? So that's an open question.
So functionally, it's not going to do anything. As I said, this is just codifying an operational methodology we're already employing. As a matter of fact, we had a tractor trailer on fire on K7 today, and Leavenworth sent 2 tankers. So to delay it, to look it over, I don't think it's going to cause any irreparable harm from my perspective. I'm not going to answer for legal. I'm going to let legal answer.
Okay, thank you.
It does not do anything to legal.
Okay.
I'm not trying to stop the process. We know we need something. But I want to be able to tell the people that what you came up with will work or won't work. Because when I talked to one of the chiefs, he said they stop at 123rd. When I talked to one of the other chiefs, he said they stopped at 435. I want to know where they stopped.
Right, that, just so you know, Commissioner, that's two different departments we're talking about who'd respond to two different areas, and as long as I've got everyone's rapt attention, we're also engaging in mutual / auto aid talks with CFD District 2 in Prairie Village, as well as Shawnee, Edwardsville, and Bonner Springs. So it's kind of an industry standard, but as I said, there's no issue with taking some time to look it over.
And I'm gonna go out and look at, and talk to the folks at both places. You know, I wanna get there and put about, not just the chiefs, but the people who be doing the work.
And Commissioner, I just want to make sure staff knows what we are asking for before you leave tonight, frankly. And then if you are willing to make a motion to hold this.
I'd like to hold this over until I can get the contract, have an outside chiefs, because it'll take a chief to make that decision.
Okay.
So we can make sure whether this will or will not work. That's my motion, although it really should be, we need to put a new truck out at 6s, and we could still do this. But if you put a truck out there now, that pretty well calms everything down. But I don't know why we wouldn't put a truck out there now, considering sooner or later we're gonna have to do it.
Okay.
And that's why we had that sales tax. I mean,
Right.
it's there for a reason.
Okay.
Let's use it.
Okay, so we've got a motion, and if I could get a second, then we'll have more discussion.
I'll second it, then I want to ask Mike something.
Okay.
Okay, so Mike, I want to make sure I understand. So it sounds like you're thinking that if we go ahead and give them permission to do what they've mentioned so far, that we won't get the attention we need to do the other. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that we were being excruciatingly plain about this, because, you know, because if it's not gonna hurt.
Well, there's no doubt it's not gonna hurt.
Hang on, Mike. If it's not gonna stop the other folks from helping us out when we need it and bringing water in, they're doing that now or not?
They're doing it now. If we call them, this would shorten the response time in terms of an automatic dispatch as opposed to
instead of having to get permission from the chief. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So I just want to understand. I want all the cards on the table when we talk about this. So it may slow it down a little bit if we don't have the agreement yet, but not a lot, hopefully. And so, okay, I understand, Mike.
If it doesn't work, then we need to put the truck out there now. You know,
I wasn't arguing with you about that. I just wanted to make sure.
And none of you are. I mean, you can't.
Well, we could.
I showed that we were showed that we're 2 stations short, and we've got something that might work for a little while, but you know, the end result should be we should have a new truck company out there.
Okay.
But in fairness to the chief, I want to send this to other chiefs that I've already talked to. Some say you get it and I'll look at it, and that's what I want to do.
Okay, I think that's fine. And everybody clear with what we're doing? We have a motion and a second, and we're going to table it and bring it back. So that's what we're voting on. And if I could have roll call.
Roll call. Groneman. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley. Aye. Kane. Aye. Johnson. Aye. Bynum.
Aye. Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner.
And if I can just let the committee know, this is the entire agreement between KCK Fire Department and Fire District.
Okay, this is the whole agreement.
Yes.
All right. You're going to have to be more specific from me, because this is language you can massage and play with any way you want. You know, and Chief, if you want to sit down, you and I sit down and talk about what your expectations are, and I'm open to that too.
That's fine. I'm right. I mean, whenever you want. My door's literally always open. So whenever.
Because I wanted all the heads thinking, you know, we got to make this better.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And that brings us to item 5, which is a resolution authorizing our mayor to extend an agreement with the city of Bonner Springs. And we are asking this one to be fast-tracked to our January 31 meeting. And Misty, why don't you fill us in on that one?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is a long-term agreement that we've had with Bonner Springs to provide emergency services and street maintenance in the unincorporated area of Loring. Last year, we extended it for 1 year because there were some overarching issues we wished to negotiate with Bonner Springs, but both sides got busy, and now we're in a position where we are extending it again for a year and getting a meeting on the calendar to address those issues. One thing I will notice when I submitted this agreement to the commission is I did not put a CPI increase in since we were trying to get it quickly. Bonner has asked for that CPI increase. So for a motion tonight, if you voted to pass it and get it fast-tracked to the full commission, I would say that we would want to correct the street maintenance piece to $109,370.37 for the year, and emergency services for $29,026.15. That's I think 2.55% CPI increase.
Questions, comments for anybody?
Motion for whatever she said.
The numbers?
The number piece, yes.
Yes, the street maintenance piece would be $109,370.37. And the emergency services would be $29,026.15.
Which is different than what we have in our.
Right. I had repeated the numbers that were for 2018.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second on this item, and it will be fast-tracked. Could we have roll call, please?
Roll call. Groneman.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Johnson. Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much. The next item is a resolution that authorizes the unified government to enter into a public partnership agreement with Caw Valley Drainage District and the Army Corps of Engineers. This item is also being requested to be fast-tracked to our January 31 meeting. So, Misty, are you taking this, or shall we hand this one off to Melissa to kick it open?
I think this is one that Melissa would like to
All
have.
right.
Yes.
Mrs. Sieben, go right ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight I have with me Sarah White, who you recognize with the Unified Government, but to her left is Warren McCamish. He is the attorney with Caw Valley Drainage District, and he's in his last few weeks with us on this project as he's heading off to much more fun places called retirement. And then to my right is Scott Mensing. He's with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the district that is over our projects. So he will be working with us a lot in the months coming forward and has been working with us on Turkey Creek, just to give you an example. Tonight, with our partners that are sitting here in the room, Sarah's gonna give you an update, and I'm gonna chime in on sort of where we've been since we came to you during the budget process last summer. There's been a lot of things happening on this project, and some very exciting things actually happened last Thursday. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Sarah start, and I'll jump in.
Okay, just a quick project overview. We're talking about 3 different levee systems. We'll refer to the Argentine levee one as a phase 1, and that one's located along in the Argentine area. In that, just a brief kind of overview of what we're planning to do for this project is 29,000 linear feet of levee and flood wall will be raised an average of 5 feet. There'll be an upgrade to 3 different pump stations. And with that, the area behind the levee serves, almost 11,000 people with a 3.15 billion property value behind that. For phase 2, which is Armourdale and CID levee, and I don't know, Sarah, that's right here. And so that crosses over into Missouri. This one will be increasing the height, an average of about 4 feet for 45,000 linear feet of levee and flood wall. There will be an upgrade to 12 different pump stations, and in this area, an average of about 14,000 people will be protected with 3.7 billion of property value. So needless to say, this is a very large project that we're going to be involved in. and it'll bring a lot of value to our community as well as Casey Mo. Just a quick, Melissa's going to kind of talk about some of the project funding, but just a background of it. It was declared through a bill that this would be a fully funded project. But at the time, we only thought that would be phase 1, and that phase 2 would be then a cost-shared project. And that cost share would be 35% of the total project cost divided between the 3 sponsors, Caw Valley, UG, and Casey Mo. So with the, tremendous efforts that Melissa and Jeff and Moark and some other people did, we got really good news last week.
So over the last 6 to 8 months, Scott and his crew know that the unified government, along with our partners in the area, Moark and the city of Kansas City, Missouri, have continually pushed the issue of why they split up what is a contiguous levee system along the Kansas River into 2 projects. Originally, when this is submitted about 13 some years ago, according to Warren, this was submitted as 1 project, but due to federal issues with funding, in order to get started on the work, they split it into 2 projects. Ever since then, this region has been fighting to get it back into 1 because you can't do 1 part without the other. So the beauty of it this summer was it came out that it was fully funded. However, we found out actually what they're calling phase 2, which is the Armourdale CID portion, was actually federal cost share, which is how we do all of our other projects with the Corps. That was not financially feasible for us or Caw Valley. And we knew that if we didn't get these put back together, that there was also no purpose in moving forward because you couldn't do 1 part without significantly harming the other in a flood event. So needless to say, last Thursday afternoon, I've never bolted out of my chair and ran so happily with so much glee as I was able to go tell Doug Bach that this project received its combining back together after a number of years of fighting, and that the federal funds are now fully funded across. So our cost share is significantly reduced, and Sarah's going to explain that. We do have some costs we will incur. There are typical things we always have to pay for in core projects, but the money that we would have to come up with for the construction side of things is significantly reduced with this $453 million.
So part of the costs that the UG will still have is for real estate, utility relocations, and permits. Majority of those will be reimbursed by the Corps. However, anything that's on a public parcel, so a UG parcel or a KDOT parcel, will not be reimbursed. So those are numbers right now that we do not know what that cost is going to be because of we need the survey work to be completed. The other costs that could come up for the UG would be if the total project cost has an overage. So these costs were put together, phase 1 was put together back in, I believe, 2005 or 2006, and then the phase 2 is 2015. So some of these costs might go up, but we do have protection because it would require the Corps to go and ask for more money. So at that time, we could say yes or no on if we were able to get to that stage.
So what happens there is that it has to go through a series of hoops at the federal level to receive additional authorization for expanded budget, and so it would take some time. So ideally, our goal, Scott, isn't it, to get this done within the amount of dollars that are allocated for the project, because it's very hard for them as well to start something and not be able to finish it. So they're doing a lot of value engineering at this point, and we're working with them on ways that we see to help keep the cost down and get the flood protection where we want it.
So this is just an update. I mean, this was the budgeted cost over here. So we're getting a $453 million project that is fully federal funded. So it's very exciting.
That is truly amazing.
So this is just a snapshot of the proposed schedule. We are basically right here. So things have already gotten started because this is part of a larger amount of money, and you really have to have something starting digging in the ground to be guaranteed this money. So that's why this is a very aggressive schedule. We're going to be doing design build for, or the Corps will be doing design build for the pump stations for the 2 phases. And then for for the Armourdale CID, they're planning on doing a design build contract for the levee. So with an anticipated completion of 2023. So it's a very fast moving project. And the UG will be highly involved with getting a lot of the utility relocations and real estate that we need to get for this project. So here's just a quick update of what's already happened. We have design agreements going for phase 1 and phase 2. Those were signed by Cobb Valley and Casey Moe. UG will be added as a signature to this. We're getting ready to, or the Corps is getting ready to put out an RFI for the design build for the Argentine pump stations. So we're working through all of those design parameters to make sure that the pumps we're getting are what we want here in the UG. And then there's a detailed survey underway for the entire project. So that's going to really give us those costs that we might have with the real estate. So the next step and why we're here tonight is there is the Argentine Project Partnership Agreement, and that is what we're asking for approval to have signed. This will be signed by the unified government and has already been signed by Cobb Valley. So that's an agreement with the Corps of Engineers.
And KCMO is not part of this one. We're still working through some sort of how this is going to progress since the funding mechanism has changed to cover the whole project instead of just fully on the Argentine unit. So Scott's in communication with folks up his ladder, is my understanding, on sort of what we'll be doing. So we may come back, as Sarah notes here, with an amendment to the contract or a different version, and the other one will go and this new one will follow on. The key here is that this money was passed as an emergency kind of disaster supplemental funding. That is the funding the president is currently looking at to help with his project that shut down the government. So we really want to get this moving and do what he's looking for, which with this bill was to actually turn dirt, which is what the Corps is constantly telling us we need to turn dirt. So that's why we're here tonight. We could have pulled this back and waited to see what they're going to come on, but we want to commit to this, get this guaranteed for our community and for our region to have these levees secured.
And the only other thing is that we'll also be coming back with, we're going to be putting together an interlocal agreement between the 3 local sponsors, which would be Cobb Valley, KCMO, and UG. And this would be how we are going to split up some of those additional costs, operation and maintenance, and things that go along with that.
Just to remind the commission, I don't know if you remember, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, the city of Kansas City, Missouri passed a sweeping bond issue ballot question. Part of that money was allocated to flood protection. And so they've been waiting to spend this money on us getting things moving on this. Nobody anticipated this happening where the federal dollars would flow. So they're ready to invest. Cobb Valley and the UG have started to have some pretty good conversations, and we've been splitting things up as we've gone so far. And I think we're going to have a really nice working relationship. And I think at the end of the day, Cobb Valley is going to benefit by getting some financial help that they haven't had from the city of Kansas City, Missouri for maintenance ongoing.
Okay, excellent. And all I can say is kudos to everyone who's been working on this project, everyone here on your team, and just in general. We've got to strike while the iron's hot. I don't know if that's quite the phrase, but we've got to. I don't know, but move to approve. We've got to act, and we have a motion. Yes, Mr. Groneman.
We're talking about utility relocation.
Mm-hmm.
You want to expand on that a little bit? What it shows us UG costs, which I assume will be passed on to the.
Well, yes. So it depends on what type of what utility, and so the survey will show what utilities are out there. And then we'll be working with those utilities on the relocation.
So you don't know what utilities were?
Not at this time.
No.
We have a good idea that, you know, there are some large transmission lines, also fiber and telecom that usually run parallel to the railroad, because we'll be in that area between the levee and the railroad is where we'll be doing. But part of what the value engineering is going to be looking at is if it makes sense to build up instead of the levee going out, we might be able to avoid some utility relocations.
My concern is with BPU and our budget is there federal dollars in this that's going to take care of this utility? It says the cost to the UG. You've seen in the past that when it costs the UG, they pass it on to
Understand.
Has our people been involved in this and talked to? Do they have any idea that there's going to be some impact on?
The answer is I'm not sure what engineering has conveyed over. Right now, we're trying to figure out what's in there. So we don't have the detailed plans of what you have in that area. So we're working on identifying all of it. That's not something that's shared between the unified government and BPU. So we only know what we actually have there, and we're now working with the Corps to identify who else is in there. So until we know, we don't have that answer. We should have that back, what you say, April? Is that what we're looking at? March or April, and then we'll be sitting down. But ideally, we have to pay to relocate things. I don't know what that means. If they're in the private right-of-way, we have to pay to move them. If they're in the public right-of-way and they're like a telecom, we have agreements where they have to move themselves, just like you do. So I'm assuming we're going to have to work with you on anything that we run into that's yours that we're not able to engineer around.
But you don't know whether that work has started, conversation.
Sarah, have you talked to anyone?
No, we haven't started because we just have a broad, since design hasn't started, we just have a broad survey footprint right now that we're working in.
What's the time frame?
So we'll find out that exact information in March, and then we'll be meeting with all the utilities to start that coordination.
We're flying with this as fast as you're flying with it tonight. We're trying to catch up and understand.
This is the first we've.
Well, understood, but we literally don't know what's in there. So we're literally trying to get that information and have a good understanding. I mean, I think Warren could tell you the number of challenges that Cobb Valley runs into with that on a regular basis with projects, so.
When you get the information, just come back and tell us what it is.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you, good questions. Anything else on this item? We have a motion and a second. We'll have roll call.
Roll call. Groneman. Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye, and thank you so much. We'll see you when you come back. Our next item, this is an update to Public Works. This is a Public Works and Safety Committee update about waste management. And so
whatever you want to do.
we have Jeff Fisher and Melissa Sieben and Mike Tobin for sure here to give us our update on waste management. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you?
Good.
First of all, before I get started, there's a correction to item number 7. Jeff Fisher is the Executive Director of Public Works, not General
Yes,
Services.
he is. Thank you.
So we can note that for the record. As you know, we've been involved for a long time in ongoing discussions with our trash contractor in regard to service issues. Their staff and our staff has been meeting on a weekly basis, and one of the key outcomes of those discussions has been that a big remedy to the problem could be refiguring the routes. This new configuration of the routes would shift the days of the week for some of the customers, and this is an issue that is near and dear to everybody is exactly when their trash gets picked up. But if we can get their trash picked up more effectively, it should be worth the trouble. Now, we've also, at the same time, we have come back to the contractor with some data in terms of the household and the household count that we feel is, I don't want to say more accurate than the BPU data because I don't want to get into that discussion. It's just, this is data that's based on our sources and not anybody else's, and it should make it easier going forward. And part of that will be covered in the next issue on the agenda item when Misty discusses the amendment part. We're hoping also that the new route configurations will move this whole thing in a positive direction. You know, it's been going the wrong way for quite a while, and we want this to be a big part of correcting it. In addition to that, one of the things that staff has come up with between Jeff and Melissa and other staff members and myself is, you've heard a lot of conversation from us, and we've told you a lot of things going forward. What we would like to do also is bring in a consultant to look at what other communities are doing, not just in this region, but outside of this region, and to benchmark us against them so that we have some sort of idea that we are moving in the right direction and that our contract and contractor are as solid as we think they are. Basically, that's an update as to what we've been doing right now, and I would make it open for questions at this point, unless Melissa or Jeff have.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Do you have more?
Just going to say that we will have a very big PR campaign on the route changes. I've already seen the map and I've seen what it leads out with just today. I believe we've got a pretty comprehensive setup on how we're going to do that. So hopefully we'll be able to share that with you here well in advance in the next week or so. We can get that information out to you guys to see what we're going to put out, get any feedback if there's things that you think we should do in addition to. But Dave Reno and Edwin Birch and the gang are going to be very busy working with Waste Management, who's going to be doing actual work as well on this, not just us, to make sure people know the changes. And we are looking at hiring a consultant, as Mike indicated, because we do believe we need to kind of look at our solid waste management plan more globally, which we are charged to do by the state as a county government. So if you have any questions on that, I'm not going to try to answer that. I'm going to let Jeff handle that one.
I was just going to add that, you know, the public messaging, the direct mailers to those affected will be over the next 3 to 4 weeks. The implementation would start in the 3rd or 4th week in February.
Okay. Implementation of our new route.
Yep, that's when the routes will change.
February 25th.
So we're gonna blitz with PR for 3 weeks.
Yep.
And then start.
Yes.
Okay. Couple questions on the consultant. Do you have a notion of the cost and whether that's in your current budget? Can we handle that financially is the question. And the second question is, what kind of time frame would you look at for a consultant to give you a benchmark report or give us a benchmark report? And I understand and appreciate what you're saying, because I think we, as we've been trying to be hands-on with this issue for all this time, have asked you for a lot of information and questions just like that we know is just adding more to your work. So I'm not at all opposed to what you bring forward. I'm just curious if you know the cost, is it within a budget that's contained currently, and a time frame for producing that?
Yes, it is contained within our budgets for solid waste.
And a time frame.
The cost is not excessive. I don't know the exact amount. It would be less than 6 figures, I can tell you that.
Okay.
Sure. Also, in regard to time frame, this is something that we would hope would be out in 90 to 120 days.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
And one of the reasons why we're bringing this to you right now is we would like to have that benchmark information back before.
Right, right. Okay, I have commissioners. I don't know who was first. Commissioner Kane.
Well, I think they ought to do their job. That'd be a novelty. When what's this do to this trial thing we were going to do?
I believe that's entirely on hold and not on the table at this time. That's my understanding.
Then my last question is, why would we pay the full load since they're the one not performing the function? I think we should split the cost.
Worth looking into, if we don't mind.
No.
Commissioner Phil, go ahead if you have a response.
We are not proceeding with the trial. That's completely on hold.
Okay.
Cost sharing, and just to kind of explain to you, we have our duty as a county to do our solid waste management plan. So we're looking at this as part of that, not because of necessarily the waste management service issues. The service issues we're trying to address through route changes and through the next item, which is some amendments to the contract that are going to help us be able to implement fines and penalties easier. So we're really looking at sort of service into the future with what we're getting from a consultant and making sure we can put that together in a package that you guys can look at and digest. I think that's the importance. And then also I believe it includes some focus group or other surveying work with it to get some deeper community feedback than we did through our resident survey.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Thank you. So yes, Commissioner Bynum, I agree that we should have an outside entity come in and look at our community, because one size does not fit all in our community. We are varied and need different approaches for different areas. I think we finally come to that realization. It's been glaring at us right in the face, where Commissioner Kane's area, they can handle things totally different than they can downtown, Strawberry Hill, up north. I mean, there's a whole lot of different things that they have to look at. So I definitely appreciate that look at it. And before we even get into the contract, I'm gonna say that yes, we need to negotiate with them on contract, but I think that I will not be saying anything out of school by saying that we need to hold their feet to the fire. They need to fulfill their contract. And yes, they also need to be penalized for not fulfilling their contract. And I do not believe we should go into a new contract, because I think that could be a problem. I think working on what we have and possibly modifying, yes, but not starting a new contract, because I think that would hurt us big time as far as money's concerned. So I appreciate you moving forward and changing the areas for right now. I know that it was really majorly changed, dealing with Mike's area being one area and my area being, and south containing, and that's really great that they have changed that, and it makes it much more efficient. So I look forward to seeing that change and see what happens. And say again your timeline on this, how you want to bring all of this about.
We're thinking that the consultants should be finished in 90 to 120 days.
So then you'll be back, so you could be back with us April with that, or end of March.
May, before the budget.
Well, that's nice, before the budget, toward the end. Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? All righty, that is an information-only item. I'm sorry.
I guess this is just my gut feeling on this thing, and I'm not all for hiring consultants, but either the consultants are going to tell us that we're doing a great job or that they're doing a great job, and so my comments are not directed towards any of you at the microphone. They're either going to tell you that that the company is doing a great job or not. We already know if they say that they are, and we don't agree with that by the response that we get from our constituency. What happens? You know, are we going to say, we're going to go back to our neighborhoods and say, well, the consultant said that, you know, they're doing a great job. If they're not doing a great, the consultants say, well, here's some other areas that you could improve. I mean, it seems like those are the kind of things that could be negotiated. And then what I mean by negotiated, if one company A is not doing a good job, maybe company B would do a better job. And you know, it just kind of, I mean, I know things cost money, but when you know, when you said it's going to cost less than 6 figures, that kind of jumped at me. I mean, because that could be 90,000, 95,000, or it could be 10,000, or it could be 5,000. I mean, 10,000 to 99,000. So help me get some comfort with that.
Sure. First,
do we really need a consultant to tell us what we need to do with this? I guess help me with that.
Cost is less than 50, I believe, and I think it brings objectivity to the situation, right? It's a tense situation between the UG and the contractor. We've been working very closely. We're trying to figure things out, and the rerouting we believe is going to help to some degree. I think what they'll be able to do is help us evaluate what we're doing well and what we're not doing well, like you said, but also what are the things we should be considering going forward. And those things are probably going to sound and look a little bit like what we've already talked about through the pilot proposal, but it's a third party that's experts in the industry and not our vendor telling us how we should do these things. Well, third party expert, right? So it's less than 50 grand though, so.
I feel better.
And you know, I saw this, Johnson County did an update to their master plan. I don't believe the UG's done that for quite a while, for probably, I don't know, a couple of decades.
Right.
And we just felt like it was time to go ahead and do that.
Commissioner Kane.
If the outside guys, the experts, tell us they're doing a good job, we ought not pay them. Because we know they're not doing a good job.
Yeah, we're not looking to evaluate how good they are doing, just to be
Right. I understood you to say we're benchmarking, we're looking at what our neighboring communities are doing. Those are things that I've been curious about for quite some time. And I will tell you, on this windy morning, that's apparently just getting windier by the moment, I did not drag my mother's brimming recycling bin to the curb, because when it's not windy, she worries about that trash ending up all over her neighborhood. And so this cold, windy Monday morning was a day that I was wistfully dreaming about a covered recycling bin, just so you know. Yeah, I think there's a lot we can learn by engaging a consultant to come in and show us what's working in other communities, and I support it. Other comments, questions, concerns? This is an information-only item. And it leads us into item 8, which is a resolution that will authorize our county administrator to negotiate a contract agreement with Waste Management. And if I'm not mistaken, Misty, it's an amendment. This is not a new contract with Waste Management.
That's correct, Commissioner. No new contract with Waste Management. This resolution dovetails to the conversation that we just had. Everyone has heard the issues, and so it's time to look at the contract document and see what we can do to legally wrap a framework around improving the service. So one of the issues that Waste Management had in front of them was talking about how we calculate the house count and how that affects their ability to do the service. And Mike kind of mentioned we were coming up with a new way of doing the house count, but in turn with that, what we need is to strengthen our penalty section. For a number of years, this was not an issue, but it is an issue now. So looking at that section needed to be updated to be more efficient, to have a stronger teeth in the contract to get penalties for missed pickups. And along with that, with the way a missed pickup is communicated, we now have the 311 system. The data is robust, it's coming in, and so, you know, I can go into the details of how those missed pickups were reported and when the penalty comes in, but this is supposed to be a cleaner way so that if you know, we're proposing language that if a house had their trash missed that day, they would call it into 311. Both sides know about that miss, and then if it's not picked up that day, then the penalties start instead of all these complicated formulas of when we get a penalty. And then there were some other just housekeeping matters about, you know, Bonner Springs, you know, they're being picked up, but they weren't included in the contract. So correcting some things like that. So this resolution would authorize the administrator to enter into negotiations to come up, and we have not formalized the language or with Waste Management, but attempt to get this amendment in place that gives us more teeth, more accountability, gives them the house count information that we can replicate in a regular fashion each year before the budget cycle. And if we can come to an agreement, this resolution would allow this amendment to go into place.
Thank you. Questions?
I think that we should increase the penalty. You know, maybe they're not hurting enough yet. And that if we increase the penalty, that maybe they paid attention a little more than the way they're doing it now. Just a thought.
Melissa.
Just wanted to explain a little bit about what we're looking at on the house count. We had been looking at BPU data, but the problem is their shutoffs make it really hard to discern what's actually going on. So we went back to appraisers type data, which is more consistent. So just so you understand, it wasn't that there was an error with the BPU data, it was just how we were trying to use it. It wasn't the best type of data to use. So that's what we're looking at, is something that's more consistent year over year, and we can validate its accuracy quickly.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook, did you have something on this item?
So to me, it sounds like basically what we're doing is giving our county administrator the opportunity to be more flexible in how he negotiates with this particular entity. And so gives him more power to put the pressure on him. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and I mean, that's a good way of characterizing it. I mean, this contract is one that's approved by the governing body, so you can change it to some extent if it's anticipated in the contract. Like, it's anticipated the house count could change from year to year, but to change sections like how we do business, that's going to take some commission action. And so this resolution is to authorize him to do that and try to make these changes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? If not, I would take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on this item. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Groneman.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane. Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you very much. And our next item is an information-only item. We have an update on our new fire station. Who's presenting that? Hi, Mr. John Kelly's coming with Building and Logistics to present our update.
Good evening, everybody. We have Kyle here with ARC Images, and we're going to just kind of go through some updates. We've been here several times, kind of showing you guys pictures and such, but we're to the point that hopefully in the next few weeks we're going to be out there on the site, getting the site work ready. So we're just going to kind of walk through you some of the steps.
Great.
So as a reminder, the project is just south of Leavenworth Road on the east side of Hutton Road. It's not right on the intersection. I think there's been a little bit of confusion about that. It's about 500 feet south of Leavenworth Road. The site plan is the same one that you've seen here before. Bids for rough grading were received on December 20th, and Heron Contracting is expecting to start rough grading during the first 2 weeks of February, dependent a little bit on the weather, and also pending on receipt of permits from KDHE and the Unified Government, both of which are imminently coming here real soon. Unified Government staff is working on getting a date set for a groundbreaking ceremony sometime soon. Again, this is the floor plan that you have seen before. It's moving forward and unchanged. I can walk you through any of the plans if you want. We completed the planning and development review process at the January 14th Planning Commission meeting. And we're planning to issue bid documents for the rest of the project by February 8th. This will include the balance of the work, everything else that was not included in the rough grading package. And we're still expecting, we are then expecting to receive bids in start construction in March. We are still expecting completion of the project by the end of the year, pending weather and the normal kinds of things. But if we have a normal year, then we think it'll be finished by the end of the year.
Comments or questions? Commissioner Kane.
Well, since Mr. Kelly's taking this project over, it's got legs. I get weekly updates from him. I appreciate his work. In fact, when he leaves you a message, it's about a 4-minute message because he misses you. But that's what I wanted all along. So I appreciate what you're doing. And I have pushed the groundbreaking back so it'll be a little warmer. And
how much warmer?
Well, I'd push it back till March if you want to.
Okay.
but you know, there was an email out today. I don't want that groundbreaking ceremony during the day. I want it on like the evening or a Saturday because it's that important to the community.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Sir, we appreciate you coming and waiting for your turn to present that. We are excited about the new fire station, so thank you all. Anything from you, John?
No, just that we're excited. We know this is a very important project for the Western community, so we're excited about getting it done, and so it's a good thing, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you bet. Excellent. Well, we're closing in on our committee here. Item 10, and it's our last item. Safe routes to school. We have an update with Lydiana LeBoy, and she is our traffic engineer here to present this item. And good evening, Lydiana. And why don't you introduce who you have with you?
All right. 1 second. Good evening. Good evening, commissioners, UG members of the committee, and members of the public that is joining us today here or online. I'm Lydiana LeBoy, the city traffic engineer and project manager for the Unified Government, the Wyandotte County Safe Route to School Outreach and Infrastructure Program. Joining me today is our consultant by Walk AC. To my right is Maggie Green, is the is Maggie Green's director of programs by Walk AC, and to my left is Ariana Keene, the Safe Route to School coordinator for the Walk AC in Wyandotte County, and she's also a Wyandotte County resident and a former American Corps Vista employee from the Health Department. I'm going to pass it on to Maggie to present and give us an update on our program, and then I will conclude at the end.
Thanks, Lydiana. Good evening, everyone. We're excited to share with you this evening an informative presentation about the Wyandotte County Safe Routes to School program. So this is what we'll be walking through this evening, just an update about our progress over the last several years and how the program aligns with Unified Government strategic priorities, and kind of talk through our next steps for the year with the program. We hope that you enjoy the photos throughout the presentation. These are actual photos from different schools around the county, so we have captions with the different programs from around the county. So what is Safe Routes to School? It's a national movement that, in the simplest explanation, aims at getting more kids to bike and walk to school. So the movement emphasizes health, safety, and built environment around the schools, and it promotes what's called the 6 E's approach. And the whole idea behind the 6 E's is that you really need a multifaceted and systematic approach in order to make change in our communities and lasting impact. So communities all around the country are doing Safe Routes to School programming, and here in Wyandotte County, the program also deploys a comprehensive 6 E's approach. So 1, we do encouragement activities like walking school buses, which I'll explain what that is in a second. We also do educational programming like the pedestrian safety program. We do engineering practices through infrastructure like sidewalks. We partner with other departments like law enforcement and animal control. We are continually evaluating our progress, and we are also ensuring that we are delivering our programming in an equitable way to every school and student throughout the county. So what you might not know, this is really exciting, is that Wyandotte County is actually setting the precedent around the region for continual support of the Safe Routes to School program. No other municipality is doing that in the region, which is really exciting. So Wyandotte County truly is leading the way for Safe Routes to School for now nearly 12 years. Efforts started in 2007 with a needs assessment, public involvement, initial programming, and a couple years later, the first sidewalks were constructed. In 2013, Bike Walk KC joined the Unified Government, Public Works, and Health Departments to start building a more robust menu of programs and encouragement activities. So we refined the approach over the last couple of years, which is eventually what the program you see today. And of course, we rely on many other partners with neighborhood groups, schools, community organizations, church leaders to aid in our efforts with Safe Routes to School. So all of our work over the last couple of years has kind of led to this big goal at the top, which is really to just partner with every school in USD 500 and 202 to organize a weekly walking school bus. So a walking school bus is essentially a group of students walking together to or from school with the supervision of an adult, which we call a champion. So through the Wyandotte County Safe Routes to School program, we hope to increase the practice of walking and biking to school by creating safer routes to schools within the county and using available funding to help improve the infrastructure, like sidewalks, around school neighborhoods. So how do we do this? Our approach starts with initial outreach. So we reach out to the principals at the various schools, sometimes along with a nurse or a PE teacher, someone who might be interested in this type of programming. And we try to set up arrival and dismissal observations. So we're out with our clipboards and our vests, and we're looking at what's happening, arriving to school and leaving school, looking at the traffic patterns, noticing where students are walking, and that helps us inform what route we might choose for the walking school bus. We also offer pedestrian and bicycle safety education because we know that a foundation of safety knowledge is important for our kids. And then this kind of culminates, which is really exciting, with the infrastructure improvements, which is everybody's favorite thing, brand new sidewalks. So the infrastructure goes along really well with the programming, and they kind of go hand in hand. So we came up with this graphic to sort of visualize the holistic approach of Safe Routes to School and how it relates not just to one school at one moment in time, but there's this sort of bigger picture here of active living and creating safer road users. So we call this the circle of life for Safe Routes to School. And we feel that ultimately by providing bicycle and pedestrian safety programs in schools and encouragement programs like walking school buses, we're not only imparting lifelong skills for our students, but we are creating young individuals who are becoming safer drivers, more engaged citizens in their community, and overall healthier. So we have accomplished a lot over the last few years, and we have a lot to be proud of. The program has grown on really all fronts with active walking programs. We've embedded safety education in a lot of the schools, and we have brand new infrastructure all around the county. So we established a program identity pretty much from not very much. We established a brand, we garnered recognition for this program across the county. We leveraged federal funding, we've leveraged partnerships and other programs to create a flagship Safe Routes to School program in Wyandotte County. Along the way, we recognized there was a need to include more safety education. So we didn't always include the safety education component, but we were encouraging students to walk to school, but there was a lack of this sort of standardized pedestrian safety training. So we partnered last year with the Public Works Department to develop and deploy a pedestrian safety program that we call Walk and Roll WICO. So essentially it's a one-on-one collaboration with the schools to integrate pedestrian safety lessons and built environment practice. We piloted the program last fall at New Chelsea Elementary with 200 second and third grade students. They loved it. And 3 to 4 schools are on track to participate in the program this spring. So the effects of Safe Routes to School extend far beyond the school walls. So in this way, Safe Routes to School aligns with 5 out of the 6 Unified Government strategic priorities. So we are impacting safety in the neighborhoods by passing along safety knowledge through our programs, but also with walking school buses, we're getting more eyes out on the street, which makes our neighborhoods safer. We're bringing community members together by having older residents and parents interact with younger students when they're on their walking school buses. We're fostering healthy behavior by encouraging physical activity throughout the day. And we're improving connectivity by creating routes and prioritizing infrastructure improvements along those routes. So one of the exciting things that we've discovered is that the effects of Safe Routes to School are starting to coordinate and align with other initiatives of the unified government. So this is all for the betterment of not just the school, but the neighborhood and the greater community, which is really exciting. Safe Routes to School has the ability to rehabilitate and engage the entire community, starting at the schools and moving outward into our neighborhoods. So these are just a few of the plans and activities that Safe Routes to School has plugged into over the last couple of years. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Liliana to talk about what we have in store for this year.
Thank you, Maggie, for this update. So moving forward, we had leveraged local and federal fundings to continue the Safe Route to School program for the next 4 years. So we will be continue this program to school year 2022. As we look ahead, our next step will be to engage the school districts in developing a sustainable Safe Route to School policy that will integrate the safety education and walking and biking programs within the school district curriculum. That is our goal. So this way we'll bring in bicycle pedestrian education to the students in Wyandotte County with the goal of creating healthier and safer environment and develop our youth generation in our community. So our steps, as I said, is engaging the school districts in communication for developing the policy. We will continue our program as we do today to all the schools, including the Piper School District, and we'll continue to improving sidewalks and projects around the schools. So this is all for today. We hope that this presentation has been informative. It's pretty brief. We are at the end of the presentation or the day for you. You want to mention that along your slide for today, we also included a brochure of the Walking School Bus program that outlines how we develop our program and had our contact information. If you have more questions, we appreciate your time today, and we ask to continue support for our program, and also invite you, as you want to walk with us one day, you are welcome to join our students.
Thank you so much. I think Commissioner Philbrook's got a question or a comment.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for all your work. And I know that when I first came on as a commissioner, one of the first things that happened was I started working with our folks that put together the sidewalk plans. And at that time, 2013, we were working already with District 500, and they did give us a list in priority of the schools that they wanted to first have, because we knew we weren't going to be able to do them all at one time. And so I do appreciate them working with us on that. We've got a few of those done. Not an easy task, not in our rolling hills and our goat paths. So what can I say? It's just that way. Yeah, well, that's kind of what it is, rolling hills and goat paths, depending on what road you're on. And I do have a question. The 8 active walking programs, you know which schools those are?
The walking schools programs?
The one that says the active walking programs. You say there's 8 of them.
I can take that one. Okay. So 8 active walking school buses: Grant Elementary, New Stanley, New Chelsea, Carruthers, Eugene Ware, Frank Rushton, Midland Trail, and Oak Grove. So those were all active as of the fall, and then we have a full other list that are onboarding this spring that Ariana's working.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Every year it varies a little bit. You know, it depends. It's always a continued relationship with the schools and everything. There's something that influences there. So we are very happy to have we started with 10 schools that we're working on, but we had 0 sustainable walking school buses. Now we can say we had 8 sustainable that did, and year by year they continue to do the program as the other ones get involved.
Well, as I understand, it's pretty much ran on volunteers, and so, as kids mature and move on, so do their parents sometimes. Yeah. And so I know that's a constant job, and I have a feeling that let's see, what's the name of the group? Bike Walk KC, that you are playing a big part in getting folks into helping out with that. And thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you. I'm just curious. I'm always wondering about the financial aspect of this, And I know we're in partnering with other organizations. I know American Regional Council. Wondering in others, both for federal dollars and otherwise, but are we projecting any kind, I mean, do we see an end to this, or is this going to be an ongoing thing? If there's an end in 10 years, 15 years, where we think that this program could encompass the entire area, is there a dollar number attached to it? That might be a broad question.
I can tell you what we have programmed till 2022. By 2022, we expect to have built 10 miles of sidewalks around schools in Wyandotte County, and with a federal allocation of funding with $5 million of federal funding in addition to our matching funds. And some extra funding. The last 3 years we got 150,000 contract with BYOC. It was 3-year contract that to do this program, and we have continued that program until 2021, where we also will get more federal funding to continue the program.
How do we partner with the USD 500 and other school districts? Do they cover any infrastructure costs at all, or do they offer it?
The partnership with the state in construction is, they have now that bond that they're doing a new schools renovating. Right. So in that partner, they are building their sidewalks along their property line. And then we are matching, or we giving priority of our sidewalk projects to match their construction as well. Okay. So that's kind of that collaboration.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Kane.
Well, there's new opportunities since they're going to build a new school out in Piper. That's right. And there's not a sidewalk within 3 miles of there.
Yep.
So it'd be a really good opportunity for you all to contact them and say, where do we start?
Yes, our plan this semester, we actually got a call from one of the residents interested in joining the program, and it is part of this semester to start expanding the program to Piper, and that means that with that we then start doing priorities to add sidewalks to the area.
There's 3 housing additions, 2 of them right there, and then 1 of them down about a half mile. Right?
Yep. So that we're good.
Let me know when you contact them.
Okay, I will.
Yes, it is.
I will appreciate your
very good timing for that. I mean, why not start now? Right. Anything else on this item? Mr. Groneman, as always, we thank you for being here. Your counterpart on the BPU, who I might add is the new BPU board president, Mr. Norm Scott's here. He did tell me anytime you can't be here, he'd be glad to stand in for you. So, and Lydiana. After this, he's probably changed his mind. Lydiana, thank you to you and your team for the presentation. We do appreciate the Safe Routes to School program and the Walking School Bus both. Those are great programs.
Thank you very much.
And with that, this meeting's adjourned, and we'll pass it over to Commissioner Markley for her 1 agenda item. This meeting's adjourned.
So obviously sometime between 5 a.m. this morning and 5 p.m. tonight, I developed this lovely cold. So I'm really glad I only have 1 agenda item so I can get us all out of here. I got my stuff. I'm good. I will now call this meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to the meeting. Public comment is welcome, and anyone wishing to speak on any item may do so when the item is up for discussion. You will have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Everyone, when you speak, please use a microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye. Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Bynum.
Here.
Markley.
Here. Next, we have minutes from both our October 23rd meeting and our November 26th meeting. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those minutes have been approved. And our team for our 1 item has already taken their places. We have 1 item on our agenda, which is an update on the UG's open data efforts, and Alan is here to present.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners.
Just a quick background. In November of 2016, Administrator Box signed an open data administrative order, and included in that was an annual update to the Commission on open data, which is the reason that we are here before you this evening. So tonight we wanted to bring you that update, but perhaps more importantly, we bring you kind of a continued story of the UG's evolution in the use of data to support decision making. And I think you'll see that through the presentation this evening. It's really a multi-department effort to expand our capability and our capacity to use data to inform decisions. So this is the knowledge department in which Judd as the data analyst sits, but also includes Public Works, Health Department, Planning, Police and Fire, just a multitude of departments that are engaging in different ways around the use of information and data. You'll hear how it's underpinning some of the key priorities for the Commission, so things like Neighborhoods Up, like SOAR, are utilizing heavy users of data and data visualization and mapping. Want to recognize a few folks, specifically Judd Knapp, who's our UG data analyst, Chris Cooley, who's our geospatial services manager, also members of his team, April Friedel and Brian Nehans, who've been involved in this. Rob Anderson, who's the Public Works Asset Manager, who's been instrumental as well, and recognize Hannah Mosiniak, who is an AmeriCorps Vista, and actually spending a year with us in KCK, and has been a great asset for the data team as well. So Judd's going to talk about how the UG is using data, and then do a short demo of the UG Open Data Portal. So with that, I'll turn it over to Judd.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm new at this. All right. So Alan covered how we got started with What Works City, and from the What Works City's work, we had to do an open data policy, and that's basically that we have to share data openly, make it easy, and make it so people can easily gather the data. So, and it's also the reason I'm here tonight. I have to give a 1-year annual update. So. We've created a data team. It's a cross-departmental data team with all of the data champions in our city. And last year when I gave this update, I was the first UG data analyst. Now we have a data analyst in the health department. So we have data analysts now. So, and the work we're doing are in all 6 areas of the commission goals. So what are we doing with open data? We make data available to everyone. So we make a product, we share it out on open data, and we let others use it. We have a great example of this. The police department found out we did a population estimate, and they needed a population count by their district. So the data team made the initial product, and then they got the population count by district without us really doing anything. So we let others do it.
That report we're getting from the police department's coming from is through your data, because we get them sent out to us, from the police department about the types of infractions that have happened per district. Is that where that's coming from?
We got the population
count back there.
So yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Data is an enterprise-wide resource, so the data in the UG used to be siloed, that only departments kept their data, but now with the data team, we built relationships, and now we use everyone's data as a whole. We support the SOAR initiative. We do the 10,000 property improvement count. We drive data-driven decisions. We give residents neighborhood information so they could investigate their neighborhoods, like which houses are unfit, which houses on the dangerous buildings list. We also enhance transparency to increase trust. So this, we are building internal UG capacity with data, and we do that by the data team is in the middle of all these departments, and I view it as kind of like connecting the dots. Because we know what data the appraiser has, but maybe the NRC doesn't. So we are basically just connecting the dots and making the wheel complete. The Esri Enterprise Agreement was signed last year.
Thank you. I can speak to this a little bit. Last year, it actually started
probably 9 months before that, we entered into an enterprise agreement with Esri, who's a provider of our GIS and mapping software. The industry leaders in this, pretty much, they're the name you go to when it comes to mapping software and things like that. This gives us, eliminates barriers to entry we have to using the software. And most of the software, most of the data, I'm famous for saying that a good 90% of the data that we deliver is spatial in nature, because all the things that we do as a government are to an address or to a location. We're delivering services, we're issuing permits, we're issuing inspections, so we're, fire trucks and police cars are all going to a location. So having a map component to it is very important. So that's the foundation of our open data portal and everything like that. I hope I'm not stealing too much of what Judd may be saying here. But the enterprise agreement allows us to remove those barriers to entry, whereas before the cost for software per an individual user was quite costly. This way, we've taken that cost on as a whole for the organization as part of the knowledge department. And looking at the numbers, we've increased quite a bit and spread things. We only see this growing more as far as the amount of things we have in our online portal is available through staff. Considerable increase in things over a 1 year period. Number of users we have using the software online. It's only going to increase, and this is just the beginning.
And I'll just briefly add that the commission funded this, and so sometimes you wonder, we funded it and what happened to it, and we wanted to come back to you and say, one of the efforts of that funding for this enterprise agreement is that we are broadening the scope and the use of this kind of data analysis and mapping across the organization.
I didn't remember if it was this a kind of a web-based situation where we fed the money onto the website and then people would have access to it. Is that what it is?
Not sure which presentation you're thinking of, but when we originally rolled things out, the open data portal, which you kind of see the picture of down at the bottom, search UG open data, your data at wicokck.org is our presence for presenting data that we have, has been through the vetting process and we've worked through and we're releasing.
I'm just trying to remember where the portal's located.
Yes, your data at wicokck.org. So.
All right, so now we're going to get into some of the exciting work we've done. This is the sales tax renewal. So for this one, we had to go through 10 years of financial data and 10 years of capital projects. And out of that, we summed it up with some infographics where you could see where all the stars, where the sales tax projects were partially funded or fully funded, and it funds 50 police and fire. This is just an example of how we summarize data and tell our data story. Neighborhoods Up and Soar is where the majority of my work has been this past year, with strengthening neighborhoods through infill housing models, enhancing the quality of life through SOAR and their property maintenance work, and improving fiscal sustainability through infill housing models and ROI. So this is what if we filled all the lots in Waterway Park within 500 feet? Like, what would happen? We really honed in on how the city makes money off property. Like, how can we increase our revenue? And we can do that through the population increase, because that would be increased sales tax. The BPU pilot increase per house and the sale. So when you total up all those, if you put 61 houses there, we will have an annual revenue of $130,000 that would go to our bank. So our population density. This is an exciting. This is like one of the best things I think we did this year. It's pretty cool that we could drop any buffer zone around anything, a school, a fire station, anything, and get a population count from it. Before we were restrained to census block groups, and like our Strawberry Hill area went through 4 of those, so we would not have a great population count, but now we have one. This is good for economic development, counting how many people are in an area for commercial development, public safety for their population count by district, health initiatives by find out how many people are around health clinics, and return on investment models are how many people would be affected by a project.
Commissioner Philbrook.
So basically what you're saying is now because we can determine what areas we want to talk about, you can do it. It doesn't have to be set up by our census, our previous census. It can be like 2 square blocks, or it can be 10 blocks, and we pick out what it's going to be to give us the data from that.
That is correct.
That's a big amen. Thank you.
Right, as Judd said, it sounds like a sort of a minor thing, but in its utility, it has a lot of applications.
We also worked with the CHIP, the Community Health Improvement Plan. Our role was basically to make sure the goals they came up with were measurable and that we had data for them. So we helped them set their goals. So this is also quite exciting. This is the opening. This was a PowerPoint from the opening slide of the ESRI conference in July, and our tax productivity map made the list. I have to say, Rob Anderson really made this map look great. So, and here is a photo of the conference. So there's a ton of people there that's seen this and had our call out. All right, our open data site. There's the address. So in 2018, our data sets we pushed out was the 2018 values. That's actually 5-year value change. Residential buildings and commercial building attributes. We have code violation, weeds, and graffiti, and we have a tax distribution map out there. For 2019, we plan on doing, continue with the housing attributes. I really want to do what a developer looks at when they want to make a development project, so they could have all that on the open data site. We're just going to work with the mowing app. We're currently working with opportunity zones, road conditions, parks, fire, and traffic accidents.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Are we still fine-tuning the code violation stuff right now, or are we through with that? You understand the question? So basically, when you say code violations, you mean code violations that individuals have had put them on, or what code violations are? I mean, what do you mean by that?
I have it by parcel.
I can't hear you.
By house.
By house? So in other words, any house that has a code violation against it, it can show up on there. Is that what you're saying?
In 2018, yes.
In 2018. Okay. Does it also show then when the violation has been taken care of?
There is a status on there of completed or ongoing.
Okay, I'm just asking because, hey, those are the things we get to hear about more than anything else. And so I just wanted to find out if you felt that you were through troubleshooting that system, or if you think it's pretty well fine-tuned.
We are still working on it.
Thank you. There is
progress.
Thank you for that honest answer. I appreciate that.
All right, and this is our open data site, and I'm going to give you a quick demo of our open data site. All right, so. Oh, come on. Excuse me. Come on. Where'd it go? Soft. How did I do it? This is getting worse. We're coming.
Looks like it.
Oh my goodness. Should I just stop? I'll just stop.
Well, we've only been here an hour and a half, right? It's laying down on the job.
1, 2.
While we're working, I'll just ask whether there are any questions or comments from the commission on this item. I also happen to know we have an incognito commissioner in the audience, and if he has any comments, he is more than welcome to come to the podium and express them as well.
He's hiding. I just have a...
He did hide very well.
Yes. I just would comment, Alan and your team, the more I understand what you're doing, the more I appreciate it. I've struggled to get my head around, what are we doing? And I get that we need data, but seeing the ways that you've applied the work is, I don't know, I just really appreciate you're touching every department. And I don't think I quite grasp that. And if you want to show it to us next month, and it's warmer, that's fine with me.
Well, one big push of the commission over the past 6 or 7 years has been SMART goals, and we had difficulty in the early years because it was difficult to create a measurable goal if we didn't have the data to measure anything. And so this has been critical to our continuing goal setting as a commission, and we definitely appreciate that. Commissioner Philbrook.
Hey, this is what happens when you have to wait to get it organized. So my comment is that this is actually phenomenal, because now my little brain is just going crazy trying to think of all kinds of things I can ask for as far as data and how to roll it together. So I'm just very excited. You guys are like...
Ideally, we can make that self-service so that, as you think of those questions, you can query them, and residents can as well, and neighborhood groups can begin to delve into this and ask questions that we haven't even conceived of, right? And that's the beauty of it. And
yeah, that's why we're elected.
Yeah, right.
To come up with all those questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner McKiernan.
All right, I'm glad I could provide the comic relief for the night. So, it's not done yet. So we created these categories where, I believe that people will get the most use out of our maps. And I just want to show you what open data is supposed to be, what it's generally what is open data, and it is. Do land bank parcels. This is open data. It's just putting data out there. But that really doesn't tell us much. Where is this land bank property? You don't know from this. So what we're trying to do is make this data usable for people. So if we come into our maps and we click on vacant lots and open. There's all our vacant lots. We could zoom in and click on them. Gives you the parcel number, appraised value.
Don't mean necessarily tax delinquent or land bank. You mean there's not a structure on it.
Correct. Improvement value of 0. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
But that also shows all the little lots that have no improvement on it that are nothing but drainage dishes with trees on them that you really don't want to try to do anything with. Is that what that is too?
Where?
So it's not as bad as it may seem in some locations.
There are some areas that cannot be developed that are hillsides and tree lined, but
it does allow you to zoom in and zoom out. It's interactive, and so you can get down and you can begin to sort of see different patterns and again sort of explore the data however you want to.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the tax productivity map. So I know this always makes some people sick zooming in on a 3D map. So you can see that there's Central Avenue is commercial, and here's Strawberry Hill, and this is the Cathedral neighborhood, and this is Waterway Park in here. So that is the tax. That's how much taxes each parcel generates.
So the darker it is, the taller it is.
That is correct.
Per acre. Per acre.
Per acre.
Per acre on a per acre basis. So it's a relative measure of economic productivity or tax productivity for the UG.
The extrusion represents the same information also. The height, my apologies. The height of the polygons also explains the tax roll productivity per acre. And they're colorized for those that can view color. Green is commercial, blue is residential, and there's an other category that's kind of an opaque color. And you can turn that on and off, and there should be preset slides in there, but this might not be my version of the map. This is one that's on open data?
Yes.
Okay.
I just turned off the commercial properties.
If you'd like to view this map, you can also go to maps.wicokck.org/taxproductivity.html.
That was easy.
Rolls off the tongue.
When you start to look at this, you begin to see the relative importance of commercial property and the tax base, right? And so you begin, again, sort of ask different questions.
Okay. All right. The next one is the population density. This is the same map we've seen. I'll spread out where I zoom into. I believe these are 2,000 feet hexes, so we don't just pinpoint which houses have population, but we spread it out. So you can see that we zoomed into the KU area, and the population is higher over there. All right. I'll show you a dashboard that we can make. This is the unfit dashboard that gives you the current unfit count. Off to the side, this is the year it was added to the unfit list. There's a heat map on there right now. I could turn off the history, and I could turn off the heat map to give you just.
Is that like unfit to have? What is that?
Yeah, it's an unfit property. Yeah, here.
Remember, unfit can include no utilities. Yeah.
All right, so this is just a sample of a dashboard that we can make. So here's the code violations that you were. Let's zoom out here and get the heat map going. Yeah, so these are the code violations for 2018 only. It's all of them. It totals about 20,000 violations last year. We could just zoom in here, and when you get closer, it turns to points, and you can click on it and get some detail. This one was a vehicle, and it had the status that was completed. So this one has been taken care of. This one was code admin citation, and it's been completed also. All right. All right, so if you want to use this site, the best spot I could tell you to go is to stay in these three. This is a real estate developer section that we're creating so we could get all the data that developers look for when they want to build. These are the public dashboards that have the counters on the side, and these are all the maps that we've shown. This is the link to the My Sidewalk chip dashboard, and this is a link to the SOAR dashboard.
Just to be clear, all of this is public. just the public dashboards are the things we most suspect the general public might be interested in, right?
Yes.
So if you're just a random person and you want to look at the developer information, go for it. Just might not be all that meaningful to you, but it is, all this is public. Anybody can access it.
And we try to make it into a usable form that we can understand. That's not a spreadsheet. So.
On that developer part, did you put in the opportunity zone area?
We're currently making that.
You getting ready to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
There is residential parcel information from the appraiser. Hits numbers.
It would have been more fitting if that had gone off when the Windows was all upside down and all that.
Yes. Yes, it would. And this is just all the information from the appraiser per residential, like number of living units. It's a farming ranch. There's 2 beds, 1 bath. Basement type, square footage, and year built. So. This one doesn't update that fast. I think it updates quarterly. Is that right?
Quarterly? Yeah, no, quarterly on the.
I believe it. Yeah.
Okay. But it's closer to real time than we've ever been before in our lives. I'm sorry.
That's all I had. If there's any other questions.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a big thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'll just add, if you go back to the mains, you can also, there is other information in there. So if you scroll down on the page, you can find, there are links to a number of other internal systems that also have information. So part of what we're trying to do is make it simple for people, but there you can kind of go to the source. There's also, I'll just point out the OpenGov, the financial data. So if anybody wants to see the spending data, historical or current spending data with the UG, it's on the OpenGov site as well. So this is all sort of in the name of additional transparency and making that information widely available to anybody who would like it.
There's nothing else from the commission. I'd like to thank the team for your presentation. Awesome. And we are adjourned. That is our only item.